It looks like we've got a pretty good crowd, so I'll go ahead and get started. So I'm excited to finally show off our mobile data entry feature that was initially launched a couple of years ago and has had a few new features gradually added since then. So we really wanted to have this webinar to highlight how it can improve your daily workflows and how you could make the most of our provisional data entry feature as well. And these are just a couple of images of people using data entry to record things like weights or leg bands in their daily routine. It's important to know that although I'll be talking about mobile data entry and I'll be talking about provisional data entry today, they're two separate features and they don't have to be used together. They do complement each other quite well. But a user can just have access to mobile data entry as a normal user or as a provisional user. So data entry is our modernized mobile-friendly data entry in ZIMS, and it'll let you record information about your animals whilst you're on the go. It can be accessed straight from your web browser, and there's no need to download an app to access this. You'll log in with your standard ZIMS username and password. And although it's been designed for mobile, it can be used for from your desktop. And it's a great way to introduce new users to ZIMS when they're getting started recording basic data for their animals, such as notes or weights and data like that. And as with all features in ZIMS, you'll only have access to this if you have the relevant roles and permissions assigned by your local admin, which I'll be talking through shortly. Currently, in data entry, when you're recording data for an individual animal, you can add animal notes, clinical notes, health status, which is something that has just gone live today. So that's a really new feature that has been added today. You can add identifiers, length and weight measurements, and body condition scores. And you'll notice this is a mix of husbandry and medical data. And we'll see in a moment what this looks like when you only have permissions for selected records. But what's really exciting is that if you have access to all of these permissions and you can add animal notes and clinical notes and health status, and well, any of these record types, this is the first place really in ZIMS where you've been able to add this data all together all at once. If you're working with group records, such as fish or invertebrates, you'll also be able to record census counts whilst you're on the go. And if you're a user with limited access, as I mentioned a moment ago, then you'll only be able to record data on the records that you have permissions for. So there's no need to stress that you'll be adding medical records if you only have access to these limited husbandry records. And when you're recording data for enclosures, you can currently record enclosure note and maintenance records. And in the near future, we're hoping to add environmental measurements. So you'll be able to record temperatures or water parameters as you're collecting them. Now, when we start thinking about the provisional data entry, this is a separate feature in ZIMS, but provisional data entry allows staff to enter information into ZIMS without it immediately becoming part of the official record. They can do that from the desktop version of ZIMS, or they can do it from our mobile data entry workflow. Entries will be marked as provisional and they need to be reviewed and approved by an authorized user, usually a local admin, a registrar, or another designated reviewer, before they become part of the permanent record. And provisional data entry is a great way to introduce new users to ZIMS, so you can review their entries for any mistakes, and you can keep your data quality high. Not every functionality in ZIMS is possible to be recorded provisionally. This is the list of animal-related records that can be, because provisional data entry was really designed for records that staff working with the animals would typically add. So things like weights, husbandry notes, feeding logs, and any records that were too complex to implement provisionally or too critical to get wrong, like transactions, they're just not available to be added provisionally. If there's any record types that you think should be provisional, we're always open to feedback as well. Within this list of record types that can be added provisionally, these 5 that I've just put the icon next to, so physical identifier, logical identifier, length, weight, and note, they can all be added through the mobile data entry workflow. For enclosures, life support systems, and components, these are the records that are available to add provisionally. And currently, maintenance and enclosure notes can be added through the mobile entry workflow. And we're hoping that measurements such as your water parameters or your temperatures and humidities, things like that, will be available soon in the mobile data entry workflow. So if you're wondering what provisional records will look like in the animal record compared to non-provisional records, this is an example of what an approved record looks like. So it becomes part of the animal record once it's been approved. It looks like any other data entry, except it's marked by a dotted line in the reported by field. So just over here, we can see the dotted line. And when we hover over this, we can see the information about who added that data and what date it was approved and who approved it. The next example is a record that's awaiting approval, and they'll show in grey. And when you hover over that little question mark, you'll see that it's defined as a provisional record. This is it's waiting for review. It could be edited. It might be deleted if the approver deems that the data entry is incorrect. So maybe this 35 kilo animal, maybe that is a mistake and it doesn't want to end up in your permanent record. But what we'll be doing in the next webinar in 2 weeks' time, on the 8th of July, we'll be looking at how you can review the provisional data and how you'll decide whether you're editing some data, denying that data, or approving it. So right now, if this record was shared externally with another zoo, they wouldn't have access to see this 35 kilo weight record because it's still considered provisional and awaiting approval. Before you can get started working with provisional records, you need to make sure that this feature is actually turned on at your institution. And this is something that can be done by your local admin in the institution preferences. So I've included the path here. They'll need to go to the start menu, to institution, institution preferences, and in the ZIMS accessibility and features area, they'll be able to turn provisional data entry on. Then the second step is actually granting access to provisional data entry. You need to create roles that can be assigned to different users so they can add provisional records. And we'll look at how we can do this when I move on to the demonstration in ZIMS. When we think about getting access to just the mobile data entry workflow, irrespective of the provisional data entry, if you have the local admin or user role assigned, you'll have access to data entry by default. If you're working with custom roles assigned, then the custom role needs to have the ability to add at least one of the supported record types. So they need to be able to add something like a weight or a note or an identifier. And again, I'll come back to this when we're in the live demonstration about creating custom roles and giving that provisional access. So finally, before I start the demonstration, I just wanted to show you a quick look at the user experience when you'll use mobile data entry for the first time from your phone. So you'll need to navigate to the ZIMS login page and enter your login details. You'll be directed to the ZIMS homepage and you'll see this pop-up. Please don't close this pop-up. Click on the Launch Data Entry feature button, and that will launch the data entry workflow. And it will take you through to that new area in ZIMS where you're going to be able to add this data for your animals and for your enclosures. So I'll switch over to ZIMS to demonstrate what this all looks like. And I'm going to be working in the desktop version rather than the mobile version, but all of the functionality works the same and it looks very, very similar to what you'll experience when you're using this from your phones. So if you do ever access data entry from your desktop, you'll be working originally from the ZIMS homepage. If you go to the Start menu, you'll find the data entry feature. You can also make this a shortcut on your homepage as well if you want to speed up access. Okay, so when you've navigated to data entry for the first time, you'll notice it's loaded in a new tab. So we have our ZIMS homepage over here. And now for our newer features, we have a new tab in the browser, which also means it has a unique URL. This is something that you could bookmark and save and return to without navigating through the homepage. So you can come straight through this URL. You can also generate QR codes just to navigate directly to the data entry page if you wanted to in the future. But I'll come back to QR codes in a bit because you can make custom QR codes specific to animals or enclosures or even specific record types. So when you start thinking about making your records through data entry, you're first going to select what do you want to record for, an animal or an enclosure. So I'm going to select enclosure. In this search field, I can search for an animal's name, maybe one of its identifiers. So if I know I have an animal called Ray, I can just search for him here and then look for the matching information. I could have searched for that animal by its local ID. Again, it still shows here. I could have searched red panda. And in this situation, it's linking me to animal lists that are called red panda. At my institution, it's also showing me any red pandas that I have accessioned at my institution. So there's a few different ways you can search for those animals before you start recording data for them. But the first animal or group of animals that I'm going to record data for is this group of dart frogs. So I'll select them here, confirm that here. And now I can see that I'm adding this record for a group of fantastic poison dart frogs. And in this instance, I just want to record a census count for them. And by default, it's set to today. So I can create this record, say how I carried out the census, a visual census, and that I counted 17 individuals. I can also start adding in extra life stages if I am monitoring the census to that level of detail as well. And I can add notes to this if it's relevant. But right now, I'm just going to change the census from 19 to 17 and save that record. And the census record has been saved. And we can see that afterwards in daily activity. And again, I'm not going to go into daily activity today because that's the topic of our webinar in a couple of weeks. So we'll be looking more at like how can you review your data entry. So now I've added this census, but next I need to add some data to some different animals. So I'm going to change the animal here. I'll deselect that animal I had selected and start selecting some different animals instead. So now I want to add data to some red pandas. I know one's called Bob, so I've searched for Bob and found the red panda here. And I want to add data to another red panda. So now I have two animals selected. And this time I want to add a note and a weight and body condition score potentially. So you can select multiple records. You don't just have to select one of these. I could select all of these at once. But right now, I'm just going to add these two different record types to these two individuals. And by default, again, it's set to today for the record. When I click Create Record this time, ZIMS is going to let me know that for the animal note, I can add one record for both of those red pandas, or I can make separate notes for each of them. So it works a little bit like the batch feature did before in ZIMS, in the original ZIMS. So I'm just going to add one record for both of these red pandas. Here I can select what is the record type I want to add. I want to add a fecal observation for both of these red pandas. You can use note templates. So if you have any note templates, you're able to select them here. You can improve your grammar like me. You can format some of the text, so you can change the color, you can highlight stuff if it's important. And this will all show in the animal record when it goes through to that record. If I have keywords, I can add those in too. But right now, I'm just going to save this note to these red pandas. And now it's moved us onto the weight record. And because it's a weight record, we know that we're going to be adding different weights for both animals. I can see recent data for this animal, see what its most recent weight recorded was, and then just come down here and record what I weighed today. If I have a body condition score, I can add that in here. And this will only be visible if you have the functionality in your role to add body condition scores. I can also add notes, but I can just keep it as simple as adding the weight to this individual. So it's saved that record, and now I can add the next one for the other individual. And again, just going to add the weight record without any notes, without any extra information. And all of that data Again, I can review it here and I can see that I added a weight to Bob the red panda and to this red panda as well. And if I wanted to see more detail, I would go through to daily activity. So it's really simple to add lots of data quite quickly. If I want to add an enclosure record, then instead of selecting animals, this time I'm going to select an enclosure. So I can select that here. And it's included any animals that are within that enclosure in case you want to apply maybe this enclosure note to those individuals. So I could add maintenance information or an enclosure note. So I'll add an enclosure note this time. If you want to change the date on a record, you can always use the feature, but by default, because when you're using this in mobile, it's most likely going to be when you're out doing your daily routine that you're adding this data. But I can change it to another date. Now I'll create that record. I'm going to add just a general note to the enclosure. I can choose to apply this to all the occupants so they get a note on their record as well. And just add any of the details here. And then you can save that record. So it's quite simple to quickly record all of this data that's going to all these different areas within ZIMS. And if you have data that you're adding regularly and you want to access data entry quicker and you want to use the QR codes feature, you can make really specific QR codes that will take you directly to a specific animal or a specific record type. So let me go back to when I added some data for the red panda. If I've got this red panda and this red panda, and I always add data to these two individuals at the same time. If I weigh them, I'm always weighing this panda and this one. And I always add an animal note and I always add a weight. Now I've selected all of this information. And if I just default it to today, this is now, it's now possible, sorry, using this information to make a QR code to navigate directly to this specific data entry. So if I create a QR code now, I could call this red panda. I'll call it red pandas weight and note. I could get more specific. I might even put their IDs on there. And then when I download this QR code, I now have this QR code available to print. I could keep this in my keeper diary or near the animal's enclosure or in a folder, and it's just ready to scan straight from your phone, and it will take you straight through to this specific data entry screen to add data for these two red pandas, and each time you'll be adding a note and the weight as well. So that's one of the great time-saving features of data entry, that you can access it straight from these QR codes and you don't have to go that traditional route that I showed you before through the desktop and accessing it that way. So the final thing I'm just going to show in the demonstration before we move on to the questions is, what does this data then look like? Where does it go to in the animal record? And what do those provisional records? I haven't really mentioned right now But if a user had provisional data entry turned on, the workflow would have looked exactly the same for them. It's just how it's reviewed that is different. And that's what we'll be focusing on in 2 weeks, how that data is reviewed. But if I switch back to our original ZIMS and I want to see these animal records, I'll load up one of the red pandas that we were adding weights to. I can see the weight that I added through data entry is displayed here. And I can see the note that I added to both of the red pandas is added here. And the enclosure note, which I applied to all occupants, has also been copied across to the animal's profile. But if I go to that enclosure record and to the notes and observations there, I'll also see that enclosure note that I added through data entry as well. Yeah, so that's how you can view that data in here. And those provisional records that I was mentioning, this is what an unapproved provisional record looks like. It's grayed out, it's not part of the permanent record. If I hover over it, it displays as a provisional record. And this is an example of a provisional record here that has been approved and who added it and who approved that record. So although when you're in mobile data entry, you won't know the difference between like the provisional workflow and the normal workflow, the difference is whether it gets approved or rejected by one of your local admins or somebody who's designated to review those provisional records. Oh, and the last thing, actually, sorry, I will move on to the questions in just a moment. I want to show you how you can create those custom roles at your institution to grant that provisional access. So if I close these areas, if I want to make the roles so someone can have access to do provisional data entry, I would need to be a local admin, and I'll go to the Start menu, Institution, and My Institution. And here in the Husbandry and Administration roles area, I'm going to need to create a custom role. So I can click Actions and add a new role, and I'll make something that I'll name. Maybe I'll name it something like Provisional Data Entry. I can use an existing role template to decide what their minimum access is. So I might use something like read only as the basis for this role. And then here, now I've created this role and it's not a Species 360 template role. I can now start managing the access and deciding what functionality this role has. And any records, things like accessions and all this data that you wouldn't ever want to be added provisionally and can't be added provisionally, you won't see the option to add it provisionally. It's only available when we get to these specific records. So I can add enrichment provisionally or feed logs provisionally. And you just have to tick this box to grant that user access to add this data as a provisional user. So this is how you give that provisional access that needs approval before it goes through to the permanent record. So if I give this access, and once I'm happy with the role that I've created, that they can search and view quite a lot of data, they can't add data permanently to the record. They can only provisionally add these certain data types. And once I'm happy, I'll save that role. And now this role I can assign to a user. And once that role is assigned to the user, they'll have that provisional access. So I'll come over here, I'll edit that user's ZIMS login details, and I can find that role that I created before.
Sarah,
And
while
this,
you're
oh,
there, sorry, would you mind showing where the body condition score role is? I think it's
uh,
medical.
oh, okay, so then I'd have to, yeah, that's
Thank
fine. So the um, provisional data entry role that I've just created here, that's more focused about the provisional data entry and needing that approval. But if you need to grant access to just different functionality that's not available in husbandry, you might have to create a separate medical role where it looks like I've already created one here. We've got a body condition and health status medical role that's been created just like I did that provisional data entry one. And if I right click here and manage this role access within the medical records, we can do the body condition score here. So body condition score, as you can see, isn't something that can be added provisionally, but it is something that needs to be assigned from the medical role management, not husbandry role management. So you'll come into here, they need to be able to search and view, and they need to be able to add that data at a minimum. They don't necessarily need to be able to edit it to have access to this in the data entry screen. And it's the same for the health status. That is all managed through, um, sorry, this is all managed through the medical role management, not the husbandry role management. And again, this role would need to be assigned. So then I would go to this user here and I would assign a medical role this time, which would be this one. And now they have the ability to add body condition scores and record health statuses for animals. But yeah, that summarizes everything that I wanted to show during the demonstration. But if anyone has questions, then now is really the time that we can go over any of those questions that I didn't get a chance to cover during the talk. But thank you for listening, and I look forward to answering the questions.
There's a question in the Q&A from Michael about
Mhm.
account timeouts. I'm trying to get an answer on that. So as soon as I have an answer, I will respond back to you, Michael.
Mhm. Thank you, Nanette.
There's also a question. When you say medical management, does this mean only the vet team or the trainers as well?
What do they?
I think it might have been in relation to assigning medical roles. So those medical roles can be assigned to anyone that you want. It's just that it's the medical functionality rather than for medical users.
Yeah. And I think medical roles can only be assigned by a medical admin, not
Yes, correct.
necessarily your local admin. So someone needs to be a medical admin to give you any access to the medical module.
So we have another question from David. When assigning the provisional role, who would be in charge of reviewing the information? Would it be assigned automatically? Yeah.
Who becomes the reviewer of that data?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we'll be covering this in more detail in the next webinar where we'll be focusing on daily activity and how you can review or edit and deny and approve these provisional records. But Hannah or Nanette, can you remind me which functionality do they have to have turned on to be able
I
to
think
review?
they need data entry monitoring role.
Okay.
And that is automatically assigned to your local admin. So your
Hmm.
local admin, when you turn provisional on, your local admin will automatically be able to review the information. If you want somebody else to review, then you need to give them this role that Sarah's showing. But just note that they can also see all of the login information and undo transactions. So you need to give some caution with who you're giving that role to currently as it stands.
Yeah. So I'm showing it in from the local admin role, so I can't edit this. But if you were making a custom role for somebody to be able to review um, your provisional data entry, you would load up the institution module and you would need to give them the ability to search and view your data entry monitoring. So this is if you were making a custom role. But if somebody's already a local admin, by default, they'll be able to review any provisional data entry. Any other questions?
So one's just come in. Can you create QR codes for things recorded in the care and welfare section? Nanette, that might be for you.
Sorry, I was responding to a
Oh,
chat,
sorry.
not multitasking well. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. So can you create QR codes for things recorded in care and welfare? So you can't currently because it's in the old system, but I don't know, Nanette, if you wanted to talk about any future, long-term future stuff for it.
Um, yes, I believe the plan is that for every feature that is built with these new screens, we'll have a built-in QR code functionality. So when we get care and welfare moved into the newer platform, QR codes will be included.
Thank you.
So another one about QR codes. If you make a QR code for a group of animals that you usually weigh all together, but one day you only weigh some of them, can you use the QR code so that you can skip some animals?
Yes. Let me show you the skip feature. Um, okay, so if I was, maybe I'm just doing it for weights and I've just got these two individuals and I'm creating that record. If you had the QR code and maybe it contains 10 animals, but you didn't weigh this first animal, you can just click skip animal and move straight on to the second or the third or the fourth animal in that list. So yes, feel free to create QR codes for multiple individuals because you have this option to skip if you don't have data to record for one of them on that given day. Anything else coming up in the questions?
And
Yes,
yeah,
we
you
have
go.
some questions. Um, where did it go? Sorry, I lost the one that I was going to say, but I'm getting there. Okay, regarding body condition scores, it would be very handy for this to be visible automatically in the husbandry side without a medical admin having to create a new role and having to add it to every keeper just so they can view it. We are looking at how roles are working across ZIMS and looking at how access to different features are working, such as if you are a lion keeper, you want to be able to get into ZIMS, record your data on your lions. If you have a lion named Fred and a bird named Fred, and you go into data entry to record a note and you search for Fred, there's that chance that you might choose the bird instead of the lion. And we are wanting to make it more targeted so that you can get to the animals easier that you work with and not have the clutter of accidentally recording information on animals that you're not working with. So these changes are going to be coming within the next year. And so this is going to address some of the questions that are coming up about how all that works. If you are interested in giving some feedback about roles and access and filtering in those ways, please let us know. I would love to talk to you more as we do some discovery in this process.
Thank you, Nina. Anything else in the questions at the moment?
So there's quite a few questions, sorry. We're
Is
making
there?
our way
Sorry, I
through.
can't see them
No, no,
all.
it's
So,
fine. So when reviewing or extracting the data from ZIMS or the reports, can we use the data in Excel? As sometimes I know the formatting is different. So in the new system, we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that the formatting in Excel is better. So for example, if it's a column of numbers, it's formatted to be numbers, not text. So in the older system where a lot of the data is currently, you can export it to Excel and do further work with it, but you might need to just format some of those columns. But with the newer exports, it should just be in a format that you can already do more work with. If a staff member only has provisional access and they enter a weight in data entry, will it show up as provisional for the local admin to approve?
yes. Wait, yeah, they only have provisional access. Their workflow for the provisional user will just feel like a normal workflow. It's only really for the person who's approving that data, that there's like an extra step needed, that they need to go into daily activity and approve any of this provisional data.
Thank you. So somebody, Isabel, would like to know if there's a message or alarm that can be sent by ZIMS to the person in charge to accept the provisional data. Not currently. A lot of our users have a lot of provisional data, so this hasn't been asked for yet because they're regularly going in and checking. But I know for some smaller members, this might be different. But we can keep a note of that request and see if it comes up again to reevaluate that one. And then Rani says, hi, as a local and medical admin, I'd like to confirm whether I can input animal medical data. If possible, could you walk me through the process? This might be one for you, Sarah, in your medical course.
What was that again? Could
Oh,
you?
as a local and medical admin, I'd like to confirm whether I can input animal medical data.
Mm-hmm.
If possible, can you walk me through the process?
Okay, yes. Because the medical module is so in depth and huge, essentially, we do actually have a dedicated course to learn all about the medical module. So when you log into ZIMS, if you go to our help menu, if this works, sorry, it's just having issues at the moment, and go to the ZIMS Academy area, there is actually a medical for non-veterinary staff course, which is available through conservation training. So here you can get the enrollment key for that course and enroll in this course, and it will talk you step by step how to enter all sorts of different medical data, even if you're not a veterinarian. But if you have access to the medical module and you're responsible for medical roles at your institution, then this course is perfect for learning more about that.
Thanks, Sarah. I think that's it for the questions. Oh, no, one. Oh, someone asking about. So the recording and the certificate will be sent to the email that you signed up with.
Mm.
And then Is there a way to summarize data in tables, graphs that you want to see the individual animal weight, date, and body condition score, for example?
In a table to see.
So I think it's they're asking, is there a way to see the data that you put in a graph for
Oh,
I
yeah.
think the animal graphing tool?
Yes. Yep. So if you were to go to the start menu and to tools and the animal graphing tool, here I would be able to search for the animal that I'm interested in or multiple animals, and I can select things like the um, animal weight, and I can track all the care and welfare information here. We can't, wait, can we see body condition score on here? Hannah, do you remember? I don't think
I
we
can't
can.
remember.
I don't think we can. I think we can see just animal weight. I can set the date range that I want to view this between and then show that graph. So I can track a single animal or I can track multiple animals and plot them against one another. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks. And then Nanette, maybe for you, when using the census group data, can we do feed logs for large colonies, as this is sometimes a long process? This one might need some clarification. So our colony is 50 plus and it takes over 30 minutes currently to do for a single day. So is this for a group of animals, like one group of 50 animals, or is it for 50 individuals? Because I think that might change the answer on that one. And while we wait for clarification on that one, what about animals that are lost to follow up? Can we still input them into data entry?
I'm not sure on the rules around that. Nanette or Hannah, do you know the
I think you can
rules? I
still
feel like.
search for animals that are part of your collection. So even if they're lost to follow up, they were still in your collection at one point. So you
Mhm.
can still add information to them.
Thank you.
That is correct. Sarah, can you show where to look at weights for a type of animal?
For what, for a species? Like the
Yes,
taxon
I would
profile?
say like taxon profiles.
Yep. Yes, so if you want to look at global weight analysis for a specific species and maybe plot your animals against it, you can do that in taxon profiles, which is now in global resources. Hoping this works because I'm in Learn ZIMS. It might not. I don't think this will work in Learn ZIMS. Okay, so yeah, to get through to this taxon profile, I've searched for the species that I want to know more about. I can choose them at the subspecies level, or I can just choose at the species level. And if I see this icon, I know it's including data from subspecies as well. And here you would be able to see the global weight analysis for that species. It's only showing right now as data deficient because I'm working in Learn ZIMS and not in Live ZIMS. If you're really interested in seeing what that looks like, I can switch over to Live ZIMS, but this is how you would get through to this area. And if you had that species at your institution, you'd be able to compare an individual in your institution to the global weight analysis for that species. Hopefully that answers that. I can switch over to live ZIMS if I'm just given a minute, if they are interested in seeing it.
While you're waiting, Sarah, could you just quickly show in original ZIMS
Yep.
how to do a batch for a feed log?
Yes. So if I want to add a feed log to multiple animals, I'm going to open the animals module, maybe just load up my list of animals, or maybe search for a specific species. Red panda is my go-to, which we have lots of. So I can select any of these red pandas that I want to add a feed log to. I can then create a batch action for these individuals, and I can create this feed log here. If they have custom entry for each of them, they each something different. You can do custom entry if they're all fed the same diet and it's just a case of they all had the same thing. I can do single entry, and here I can start inputting what they had. Oh, palette 200. And you can add in this information, add in extra food, add in how much, and all these different parts of the diet. And I can, because I added this is a single entry for all, they're all going to get the same data entry added. And I can save that. And that's how I do a batch transaction for a feed log. And that would then show in, oops, sorry, if I went through to the animal's record and into more details and into their feed log, I'd see that data entry here. Any other questions coming in just before we round out the hour?
It looks like Hannah is typing an answer to this question, but the question is there a type of graph we can look up to see global ages of a species?
Yes, we have again in our global resources, animal management and husbandry, we've got the age distribution graph. And again, if I were to search for red panda, I can search globally by continent, by country, by an association, or if you hold lots of these lots of individuals of a given species, you might want to run it at your institution. Oh, I'm in Learn Sims again. So this is inaccurate data, but this is the age distribution that you can see. So you can see the females on the right-hand side in red, males in blue, and undetermined sexed animals in yellow.
Okay, I think that's all of the questions.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So just before we finish up, just to reiterate, this is a two-part series. Today was really focused around how you enter the data, how you can use the mobile feature, and how you can set up provisional data entry. But next time, it's really about how to review that data and accessing the daily activity area. So you can review any data and you can review your provisional data as well. But yeah, thank you for joining today, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you next time.